Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Janet Steele, and I'm the new director of the Institute for Public Diplomacy and Global Communication. And we're so happy to have you here today, and we're very excited about our program, which is a special program honoring the centennial of Walter Roberts' birth. And the title of the program is Challenges in the New Public Diplomacy Environment. And when we came up with that title, we had no idea what the new public diplomacy environment would be and some of the challenges that we'll be facing. So I'm very excited about our panel. And to introduce our panel, I would like to invite a man who really needs no introduction, the director of the School of Media and Public Affairs, Frank Sesno, to come up and make the introductions. As all of you know, Frank has been been a great friend of IPDGC, and he's also been a journalist for more than 30 years. You may know him, recognize him from CNN, where he was an anchor, Washington bureau chief, and White House correspondent. So, Frank?
Well, thank you, Janet Steele, and I would like to start, and I would be remiss if I did not start by commending Janet and congratulating her for her leadership of the Institute of Public Diplomacy and Global Communication, and also for thanking Sean Ade for his many years of service to help grow this institute to what it is today, and to be able to convene such a remarkable group of people and have such a relevant and timely, as you say, Janet, we couldn't have appreciated just how timely conversation that we're going to have. Perhaps someone will tweet the new Secretary of State while we speak, but you know, I don't know who would tweet such a thing, but the imagination can wander. Yes, I worked at CNN, but I also worked at the Voice of America. That's where I started my career in Washington, and Alan Heil and I were just commenting on that. And so Walter Roberts and what he did and what he stood for and what he represented is something that's very special for me and for all of us, because he not only shaped history, but he made it in so many ways. So today we're celebrating the centennial of his birth, and how remarkable that he lived so close to the centennial of his birth. What a long and distinguished life. The Walter Roberts Endowment was founded by him and others, and with generous donations of his own money. And he was really the primary force, and this was the primary force behind the establishment of the Institute for Public Diplomacy and Global Communication, which we fondly refer to, and rapidly as IPDGC, because we do acronyms very, very well in Washington. IPDGC is organizing this conference, as it has done other convenings in the past, and the generosity of the Walter Roberts Endowment has made this event possible, and that's important. As many of you know, Walter had this incredible and distinguished career at the Voice of America and the U.S. Information Agency, ultimately rising to director of USIA after retirement, called him back into government service to become executive director of the Board of International Broadcasting. And for those of you who had an opportunity to come to these events, or who knew Walter personally, you knew how passionately and personally he took those commitments and the task and the mission of this enterprise. After retirement, he also served as Director of Diplomatic Studies at Georgetown University's Center for Strategic and International Studies, and for 10 years he was diplomat in residence at George Washington University, where he taught a course in diplomacy in the information age. Now, if only Walter were alive and here today to see how the information age has transformed our lives and continues to transform our lives, how it's changed the way citizens obtain information and share information, how it's revolutionized the way political leaders organize, mobilize, communicate, and win. As social media allows each citizen to receive his or her own custom news feeds, to serve as his or her own executive producer or executive editor, from so many sources, from traditional media to media from around the world and social media, the very notion of objective, impartial, detached journalism, professional journalism, the idea of gatekeepers, the idea and the concept of fact, all of these things are being challenged as never before. So needless to say, these changes in public diplomacy reflect these changes in communication and in the larger media world, because this communication is a global, real-time, 24/7 enterprise. So today we have a really distinguished panel to discuss the ramifications of the new public diplomacy landscape and to look at and describe successful, or we hope successful, strategies, approaches to meet some of the 21st century challenges. So I'm going to start in the order of my proximity, not necessarily geographic proximity, but I want to start with Professor Robert Entman, who is a colleague, a friend, and has this office down the hall from which he regularly harangues me about what is happening in the world and what we need to do to change it and fix it. So I'm looking forward to his comments. He will explore the topic of U.S. media diplomacy and foreign opinion. We'll then hear from Macon Phillips, the coordinator of the United States Department of State Bureau of International Information Programs, which sets policy for the department's information programs. Macon will discuss leveraging digital tools in social media to advance U.S. policy. After that, Andre Mendez, Chief Information Officer and Chief Technology Officer of the Broadcasting Board of Governors, will describe how the BBG addresses various challenges in reaching global audiences. And I'm interested to see and hear how they do that with competition from so many other global players, because it is when I was at the Voice of America, it was VOA and BBC. We got a lot of company out there right now and a lot of competition. Finally, Andrea Diarmont, incoming information officer and spokesperson for the U.S. Embassy in Kathmandu. Have I got that right?
I'll be heading there in July.
You'll be heading there. We'll speak about public diplomacy in a post-truth world. Now I'm missing a name here. That's awful. Right? We need. I'm going to let you self-intro because I'm.
Okay, I'll do it.
You'll do it. All right. A tireless advocate for increased attention and funding for public diplomacy, Walter Roberts once stated that public diplomacy was no longer just an instrument of foreign policy, but had become its indispensable public face. So we look forward to hearing all of our panelists discuss this important challenge. I want to thank you all for coming here today and braving the weather. We look forward to your participation and your comments in all of this. This is an important conversation, and this is one that we will engage here today, but is going to be engaged over time and in a very public way in the coming weeks and months. I'm going to turn this over to our moderator today, GW Public Diplomacy Fellow Thomas Miller. Tom is a public diplomacy fellow on loan to us from the State Department. He's in his second year with us. He has 34 years working with and for the Department of State and in jobs all around the world, from Assistant Cultural Affairs Officer in Pakistan to Deputy Chief of Mission in Greece. And so he has seen public diplomacy and its many challenges up close and personal. So Tom, I'll hand it over to you with apologies to complete the introductions as well.